Hello and welcome back to yet another Geek Show where we have the faces for radio. This is your host, Alex Ecker.
This is your host, Dalton Lee. I'm so glad you came up with that terrifically original joke that I'm pretty sure we've told on this show 3 times before.
I'm sure we have. But...
And that our grandparents probably told on their old-timey radio shows.
Hey, man. Like the last episode, the well's running dry.
Okay. Welcome
Don't
back
you,
to
laugh in sigh of relief at the same time I do.
Welcome back to your webcam, where I unfortunately have to see you and the audience fortunately does not. And man, I really just want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I guess you're not done and we have to save it and talk about some other bullshit that's just getting in the way.
Sure.
Getting in the way of the only thing that matters.
The only thing that matters.
So what were you doing before I returned your PlayStation and your life was consumed by Final Fantasy VII?
Okay, so let me just point out that we have a text chain and you were all... Man, I don't want to record. I just want to play Final Fantasy VII. And, before that, it was, man, I can't wait to play Animal Crossing. And look at me with all the resources, but none of the money.
Oh, was that in my invite to finally discuss Animal Crossing?
No. Give me about a week or two. There's some works in the pavement.
Okay, well, I'm bringing it up anyway because that's what I got.
I was gonna actually be.
There are no rules.
Week.
There are no rules that a game cannot be discussed multiple times on this show. Just look at Final Fantasy VII.
Fair. Or Sekiro.
Okay, so Animal Crossing New Horizons. I just had a really interesting experience with this game where I bought it maybe a week after launch, and I bought it because I saw a very large group of my friends all playing it together and having a Discord server together where they would share their turnip prices and tell each other when they're opening up their islands for visitors and whatnot. So I bought it, and actually it kind of blew me away. For the first day I had it, I didn't even get to play it. I played for like 5 minutes and then I handed it to my wife and I said, make a character. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but my wife does not actually play video games. But she still sat there and played it for hours that night. Like without my guidance, she'd ask me questions and I'd say, I don't know, I just bought it 10 minutes ago. I haven't played it. And she just kept going. So that was unreal and bizarre to see. That said, she's over it. She doesn't care anymore. That doesn't mean it's bad. All of my other friends are still obsessed with it. But here's the thing that was strange for me. I was not getting hooked like everyone else. I would play it for maybe a half hour a day. And I started to feel like it was honestly tedious and boring. And I just didn't get it. Like I could get it like on paper. Like if I wrote down it's about this and that and this, then I can wrap my head around why it sounds appealing, but it wasn't doing it for me. And then randomly yesterday, I opened it up for the first time since I got Final Fantasy VII, and I played it for like 6 fucking hours. Yeah, so I got home today and I played for several more hours again. But here's the thing is, I can't tell you why I suddenly got hooked yesterday, why it wasn't working before, and why it is now. Maybe I've got some of it. I've got a rough idea. Okay. To me, the game has a really slow, frustrating start.
Yeah.
In that, fundamentally, the game is all about waiting. It's kind of a lot of mobile game mechanics without the predatory microtransactions, really.
Or the phone.
Yeah, and so a lot of it is like, oh, you you're just acquiring resources, but like, oh, there's only a couple rocks on your island and you need to wait an arbitrary time period. I mean, there's a specific time period, but the game doesn't really tell you these time periods. You have to wait whatever time period for it to suddenly be holding stones and clay again. You need to wait some time period for your trees to grow fruit again.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. But then there's also little tedious things like your backpack only has so much inventory. And so I'd be trying to explore what little game mechanics are there from the beginning, and I'm constantly filling up my backpack, and I constantly have to walk back to the store and sell the things I don't want, and then walk back to my home and leave the things I do want there to empty my backpack back out. But then, oh, I've emptied it, but it's still actually half full because of all the tools you need to carry. You need to carry your shovel and your axe and another kind of axe and a fishing rod. And
right.
I think something that might have been unique to my playthrough, for those that don't know, you're all familiar with Animal Crossing. I don't know what I'm talking about. At least as of this game, everyone's familiar with Animal Crossing. But
For
your
those of
island
you
is
who don't know what
randomly...
Mario is.
Yeah, your island is randomly generated at the start. And I think I just had a really crummy starting island because 75% of it was cut off from me from the beginning. Between like it's like rivers, which you need this like pool to jump over or eventually build bridges over.
Yeah.
And then there's just like little cliff sides that you need a ladder to climb up. And it took me forever to get to the point of getting these things because what portion of the island was available to me just had so little there. So I would open the game, I would immediately just clean up all my resources and then have nothing to do. And then I would look at my friends and how much they're playing. And I'm like, what did you do for 8 hours here today?
Right.
And then like, sometimes it turned out things took me longer just because I wasn't looking things up that the game wasn't outright telling me. So like I didn't know for a while that there was an expansion for your backpack available to buy with a certain currency. Just didn't know you could buy those expansions. Don't know how many days it was in there before I found it and bought it. So that sped up the game significantly. And just things like that. Like eventually I discovered I could buy a ladder. I don't know if the ladder showed up in the shop that day or if it was in there for a few days before I noticed it. But so it was only as of yesterday that I could climb cliffs and finally get to my entire island.
Gotcha.
Getting a good portion of the game is like traveling to these other like randomly generated islands, and like you have to spend some amount of currency for a plane ticket to get there. And it was really hard for me to get that currency to get there because this currency, the Nook Miles, they're basically, it's not like money you get for doing a job. It's currency that you're kind of awarded for doing things in the game. So it'll say, catch this many bugs to get these Nook Miles, catch this many fish to get these Nook Miles. And I would so quickly run out of things to do.
Yeah.
Maybe the fish maybe the fish are always available, but it would be things like chop this much wood. And I'm like, okay, I cut trees for 5 minutes. I'm out of trees now. Just what do I do? But suddenly yesterday, I felt like the game was moving after like 10 hours of gameplay. And so I might be properly hooked on it now. We'll see what happens in a week or two and see if I stay there. I'm really fixing to get away from this show right now and continue playing it.
Fair enough.
So I guess my reaction now is, I don't know. We'll see. It was 10 hours of, I don't know, I'll get it. And then a 5-hour session of, I don't want to go to bed. Went to bed at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
On a work night. And I don't know. We'll see.
And It seems to me like Stardew Valley, it took me a minute to kind of like, okay, if I do this, I can kind of future maintenance things like how seasons change. Like when I got into the second year of the game, I was like, oh sweet, I still have these many, seeds for my garden, so that way it'll save me money in the start so I can kind of boost up, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. It seems like there's a bit of a learning curve, but once you understand it, I'm sure the game gets much easier.
Yeah, and I don't know if like my friends moved along more quickly just because they bought it and played for 10 hours on the first day, or if they were actually like Googling how things worked, because I have 15, 16 hours of playtime now, and I still don't have the fourth row of my backpack inventory that I'm pretty sure, based on screenshots, all my friends have had since like a few days in, like since before I bought the game.
Yeah.
I still don't know what makes that available to you, but things have happened in my last day of playing it that I feel like I've been exposed to most of the mechanics now, and I can finally start to get it and understand what other people have been doing all this time.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I still haven't tried Stardew Valley. If this doesn't get me hooked, I will finally try it. I've owned it for years.
Yeah, Stardew Valley's in the same vein for sure. I don't know what's really different or not, just because like I've not played a single Animal Crossing game. So I don't know if one or the other is better per se. So I'm not 100% certain. I know that my wife finally ordered a Switch, and it should be here within a week. And I will probably get the game and play with her. So
if you both get the game, you will be thrilled that you are playing it on two different Switches.
That's exactly why we're doing it.
I realized that was a problem too, and I don't know how long it took me to realize, but because, like I said, so much of the game is just logging in daily to acquire all the resources on your island. Turned out my wife and I were sharing them the whole time, and so that was slowing down our progress.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Oh, it turns out there's no rocks dropping any clay that I need to build this and that because my wife already got them.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. That I'm sort of glad that we didn't take that route then, because I would have been getting pissed off and not as interested as she is, because much like how I bought the Switch specifically for a Breath of the Wild when it first came out, I got it like launch time is when I got my Switch. Yeah. Like I went to a Toys R Us, RIP. For those that couldn't hear that, I pumped my chest like I was repping them. I went there at like 4 a.m. in -4 degree weather and sat in my car that barely worked for 6 hours for them to open. Yeah, that was a good old time. That was cold. At least I had Ocarina of Time 3D on my 3DS to play. But dropping off of the Nintendo wagon, if you're done, Dalton.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, cool. I don't know why I said dropping off the Nintendo wagon, because this game,
like I just talked about 7 Nintendo games in a row.
Yeah. We probably will revisit. I bought recently Soul Calibur 6. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Namco that makes the games.
Okay.
I actually have a long history with these games. I started with Soul Calibur 2. I mean, everyone played Soul Calibur 1 on arcade machines. But Soul Calibur 2 stuck really hard with me. Played a little bit of Soul Calibur 3. I owned 2, 3, 4. I didn't play 5, I don't believe, because I think 4 had Yoda and Darth Vader. The 5th one I kind of missed. And then I picked it up with this one. But Soul Calibur is about two weapons. There's Soul Edge, which destroys the world basically, and Soul Calibur, which is a sword that's kind of the opposite. and these heroes in the game, whether they're heroes or villains, they're just kind of people like going their own path to find Soul Edge. Not realizing that it's going to kill the world kind of thing. In Soul Calibur 2, they harken back to what Soul Calibur 2 did in Soul Calibur 6, where they had a story mode where it was all text adventure. Like it would narrate you a story through dialogue boxes. There would be no cutscenes, no nothing, but it would tell your character, you're traveling on a ship.
Yeah.
And, next thing you know, you get attacked by pirates, you get kidnapped, and you're in the deck of the ship, and you have to fight your way out. And then it'll go into a 3D arena environment where it's not just moving left and right, it's moving up and down around like a space. And you fight to the death, basically. And I thoroughly enjoyed the dialogue box narrative of 2. And they brought it back in 6. But the nice thing is that you get to create your own special character for the story mode. I mean, character creation's not
Wait, so is Soul Calibur 6 the game where the character creation is just so ridiculous that, like, it may as well be the Spore character creator? Like, people can just make flat out anything with it to just absurd extremes? I remember like a year or two ago seeing a million GIFs of people just being able to make ridiculously accurate like any character or penis monsters primarily, really.
No,
just like Spore.
Yeah. It's not that ridiculously accurate. They give you like templates to work with, like, hey, pick this face template or pick this eye color, that kind of thing. It's not like super in depth or anything, but it's a lot of fun. Like you can base like your character's attacks off of the main characters in the story. Like,
I just image searched it, man, and you have not dug into as far as the thing lets you go.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, because at a glance, when I just image searched it, I am seeing
penis monsters.
For a character creator, not 100% accurate versions, but I am seeing surprisingly close versions of Shrek and Piranha Plant and Sonic and Sans from Undertale and Lightning from Final Fantasy. And it's I don't know. Maybe accurate wasn't the right word, but the flexibility is like nothing I've ever seen.
I've seen some pretty ridiculous flexibility in character creators, like getting the exact like little degree of like face changing and all that other stuff. A tradition I do in the character creators is I always make the Legend of Dragoon characters as close as I can. And you bet your ass I spent 6 hours in the character creator doing that. But the story's pretty good. I'm not super far into it. But the cool thing about it is that it's not like it's its own unique fighting style when you pick or create your own character. You pick a template of like, who do you want to fight as? Like, I pick Siegfried, for example, because I like the combat style. It's mid-range. It's not something super long range. He's not super slow for using a giant sword. I don't know. I just like his moveset. But, there's a ridiculous amount of combos and weapons that I'm not super great at. Like, for example, one of the characters is Maxi, who's one of the first main characters you meet in your like story mode. And he's a pirate whose weapon is nunchucks, which kind of cracks me up. I don't know why, but he's actually really cool to use, but I just don't like how he's fast, but he doesn't have range. With like a longer weapon, and a lot of the enemies seem to have longer weapons, or the other characters do. So I'm good with him, but as long as it's against somebody that's not good at the game. You know what I mean?
So okay, so for fighting games, there's not a whole lot that I've dived into really. For the most part, like Smash Brothers is kind of its own thing, but as for more traditional fighting games, Mortal Kombat's the one that's been there through most of my
I
life.
love the hell out of Mortal Kombat.
And the thing is, and I want to see what it is for you that stands out in Soul Calibur in this regard. During like the PS1, very early in my gaming experience, I had Mortal Kombat 4. I had some Street Fighter game. I want to say it was some ridiculous 2, I don't know, X plus Alpha and Knuckles special turbo fighter edition, something crazy like that. I think I had like a demo for a Tekken game, but probably not a whole game.
Yeah.
And the thing is that from what experience I have had trying out different fighting games here and there, mostly just like, oh, I'm in an arcade, let's go play this version of Street Fighter for a minute, let's play this version of Marvel v Capcom for a minute. Gameplay wise, I haven't dived into the genre because it all kind of feels like the same thing to me. Like for people that really get into them and really get good at them and like nitpick the changes from one Mortal Kombat to the next, I'm sure those people have insightful looks into this is why I like Street Fighter and why I don't like Tekken and whatever. I just chose Mortal Kombat because I liked the characters there the most. So I kept buying the next game because I like these characters. And that's really all there was to it. It had nothing to do with gameplay. What is it about Soul Calibur for you? Is it purely characters, or is there something about the gameplay that makes it stand out to you?
Well, okay, so we have a local skating rink down in this area, and I remember they had a Soul Calibur machine. This is before it burned down and got rebuilt. I remember it burning down. For some reason, I feel like it burnt down.
Anyways, I don't know anything about this place.
Oh, yeah, because, you know. But,
what? Because I don't go outside and do physical activities? Is that what that was?
Exactly. Well, at that time frame, what was that like? Shit, was that like 15 years ago plus? Mm-hmm. I'm old.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, and I remember Lizard Man was the character I used. He was a dinosaur that was a sword and shield, and I remember playing that as a kid. I don't know what it was, but like, you know, you see the arena and like there's a narrator talking and saying something like 2 souls, 1 victor, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you just fight to the death. And I like the ring out style. You can knock them off the ring and get a KO that way, or you can beat them. But I remember seeing Soul Calibur 2 at a mom and pop like used game shop. And I picked it up because it was cheap. It was like $7. And I'm like, I remember this game when I was younger. Like, I didn't realize that it was like a console thing, because at that time, like, nobody knew like, oh, console games can be arcade games too, or vice versa.
Sure.
And I picked it up and I started playing it. I remember the opening cutscene. I remember it like, you know, going through like small, like 10-second clips of every character's life in that particular part of the story. And something got me excited about it because I remember this. Okay. Watching that cutscene, I'm like, this is the time that you're supposed to pick your favorite character because of what their scenery is, how they look, their fighting style. And I remember Mitsurugi, he looked really sweet because in his cutscene in that game, he's fighting and then cuts an arrow in half right before he like charges into like a bunch of people. So I'm like, oh, that's badass. And like, I'm looking at all these other people and like, I see the evil guy Nightmare, who is, his story arc is he splits into 2 people, Nightmare and Siegfried. And I like Siegfried. But I remember seeing the cutscene with Raphael running from other people. And I'm like, I like his character design. He looks sweet, but I don't know what he fights with. And I'm like, I'm probably going to pick that guy because he looks like a cool character.
Okay.
And the first thing I did after that cutscene was I picked Raphael, and I fucking hated him. Because he uses a rapier, and he's like fancy fencing and shit. And his style is all about technique versus just brawling. And I couldn't get into it. And then I seen Nightmare and I'm like, oh, he wields a giant sword and he's got us armor. And I'm like, I don't like being the bad guy in games. So I was like, all right, let me try him. And then I realized that they have different costumes So like there was him in like the all dark purple armor. Sure. And then there was another costume of him where it was just like he was wearing like the bottom half of the armor, and it was Siegfried, and he was like mutating into like this demon with one arm. And I'm like, that actually looks sweet. Like that character design looks really cool. And I started playing as him, and I fell in love with the fighting style because it's not about technique and combos with him. It's about keeping people away and knowing when to bring them in. There is some fighting style techniques there that like you have to learn, sure, but the fantasy setting, everyone knows, we talked about this before. I'm all for the fantasy setting. Don't get me wrong, this one's a weird like anime fantasy setting in some spots, and I'm not. Anime fantasy is sometimes pretty weird. But I do really dig this series. And not to mention Soul Calibur 6, all the Soul Calibur games, really, they had a unique thing where since they were Namco, they could be distributed and put onto different game consoles, and you got rewards for it. Like in Soul Calibur 2, for the PlayStation 2 version, you got Heihachi from Tekken as a playable character. On the Xbox, you had Spawn, and on the GameCube version, you had Link from Legend of Zelda.
I remember this.
Okay, yeah.
I did play, I don't even remember which console. I've played like 5 minutes of Soul Calibur, and it was this game.
Okay. Because Link was in it?
I don't remember if it was Link, or I don't even remember which console I played it on, to be honest. I just remember seeing like in Game Informer or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I remember reading about these different console exclusive characters and just thinking it was interesting, and that stood out to me.
Gotcha.
Today that bothers me, because to me today that's a gimmick for selling multiple copies of a game, and it's a scam. At the time, it was really exciting to me.
I don't know. It's something that's best left in that time frame.
It's something that, while publishers are giving me a million other reasons to be critical of business practices, they don't need to throw that one into the ring and give me another thing I need to try to mentally justify.
Yeah. See, like, I owned the PS2 version myself. I had a friend who acquired his copy on the GameCube. He didn't steal it at all from a store or anything. And then I had another friend who owned it on the Xbox. And I got to say, out of all the characters that if you had all three consoles and could pick one of those copies for that console, it would be Xbox. Because Spawn is a little more fluid in his movements. Link, it feels like a really, really clunky version of Super Smash Bros. And it's not good, at least to me. And Heihachi's fun, but like he's difficult to play.
It's funny to me that there wasn't a worthy enough actual mascot rather than Spawn.
Right.
Really, this couldn't have been, I guess Master Chief would be the go-to.
Yeah, but he doesn't really fit the fantasy.
Nah, screw it. Give me someone from Jet Set Radio Future. I don't care.
Well, yeah, they kind of threw that out the window when they put fucking Darth Vader and Yoda into Soul Calibur 4. But anyways, Soul Calibur 6 actually has Geralt of Rivia in it, and I haven't really played him too much, but he seems like he fits right along, like, in the characters. And like the nice thing is like they give.
I've always liked the way Freddy Krueger fits into Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
That feels like a reasonable match. Yeah,
actually, it really does. But each of them have like a story for their reasoning and being in the game. Like, for example, I think Yoda's his backstory. This is just out of my memory. I'm not even looking at anything. He accidentally used a fragment of Soul Edge in his lightsaber, and it opened a rift, and he went into that world.
Oh my god!
So he was trying to find his way back, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it's weird. Like that one was weird in particular. But I don't know Geralt's reasoning. I haven't looked up at his background story as to why he's in the game. But if you already like Soul Calibur games, this one is no less for wear. it's the same mechanics mostly. Some new introduced ones from like, past 3 where they have like the super special moves and shit. But yeah, if you're expecting a Soul Calibur game like 2, this is the one to pick up because I really enjoy how they brought the story mode back. Yeah, I fully recommend it.
Have you ever played Bushido Blade?
Oh shit.
PS1 Bushido Blade.
It sounds so familiar.
I'm thinking about this because it's the antithesis to me saying that, like, for me, fighting games largely just feel like the same thing with a different skin laid on top. Bushido Blade was different in that Bushido Blade didn't have like
it didn't have health bars. System. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
You had
one-hit kills.
It had one-hit kills or just like dismemberments.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I haven't played it. I've heard of it, and I've always wanted to play it. I
had this on the PS1, and it was grueling, man. I don't think I made it anywhere. I want to. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I didn't make any real progress, but the graphics were really impressive to me, so I would turn it on and lose and quit over and over again.
That's funny.
But today it feels like something I'd be into. We'll figure out how to do it. Quarantine has kind of gotten in the way of our Let's Play series, but once we
get together,
we'll figure out how to emulate together over the internet, I guess.
That's true.
We're gonna have to.
You know what game I'm surprised you didn't say that you played from like the PS1 fighting style era? Man, this is bringing back all kinds of nostalgia for me too, because that's all I played was like fighting games and adventure games.
Sure.
Bloody Roar 1 and 2.
Oh my god.
I
did have these.
Okay, yeah, because those games were so good. They had a unique thing to them where
I feel like these might have come up on a very early episode of the show. I'm not sure.
It's very possible they did.
We're definitely going to revisit these.
Yeah, those games were fun. And they had a unique enough twist where you would transform into like a half animal version of that character's whatever he could transform into.
Yeah.
I think the bunny and the wolf were pretty sweet, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've played those games.
Could be partially responsible for furry culture today, too.
We're not getting into that.
It still would have happened without them, thanks, Lola Bunny. But
I have no idea who that is. I live under a rock, bro.
Lola Bunny?
Yeah, I have no idea
Space
what that
Jam.
Is. Oh, god damn it.
I'll let you think about her for a few seconds before we move on.
I'm not even thinking about her. I'm thinking about how much of a piece of shit I am for not remembering. I don't know why, but for some reason when you said the name, it didn't connect. I was like, I don't know what that is. And then, great.
I still quote one line of dialogue from Space Jam. I have not seen Space Jam since the 90s, but
me either.
And I don't quote movies or shows often, I don't think, but the one I do still use all the time for no particular reason is, I believe it was Daffy Duck saying, "I don't want to go to school today, Mommy. I want to stay home and make cookies with you."
You just reminded me so hard.
It's kind of gross, but I say that to my wife every time I don't want to go to work.
Ew. That's
how I say
it. You just reminded me, dude, that they remade Shaq Fu. It's like $20 on the Nintendo eShop, and I put it on my wish list because I want to buy it, but I haven't.
I won't be doing that.
I don't know why. I just want to get it.
Speaking of garbage, I watched a Netflix show.
Oh God, Tiger King again?
No.
My wife has watched it twice.
I'm done discussing Tiger King. Other than she did it anyway. Have you seen previews for Too Hot to Handle?
No.
This is a reality show, which I generally refer to as garbage. Before my wife and I are about to watch just a really bad reality show, we always say, "Give me the garbage." Because that's what we're about to watch.
Give me the garbage.
This show, it's, oh my God, the very premise is so goddamn asinine. The whole idea is that they find these really conventionally attractive people that are apparently all just undiagnosed sex addicts, and they throw them all on an island together. And they're told at first that the show is just going to be, I don't know, any other reality show. They're not told there's a particular goal in mind. They're just going to be paid to have this vacation on a private island together.
Sounds like it's going to be a very short-lived show. Already.
And then it's revealed that the premise is actually they all need to not have sex with each other, and they need to experience real emotional growth for a cash reward. And man, episode 1, honestly, I didn't think I was going to finish it. And then I binge watched it. Episode 1, I was like, these people cannot be real. They all just show up on this island, 1 or 2 at a time, meet each other. They're all in like the skimpiest swimwear, and they're all just immediately acknowledging like how, I don't know, I guess sex addicted is the right word. They're all just being like really gross to each other and just really inhuman. And then they reveal, they make the reveal, oh, you're not supposed to have sex. And then everyone whines about it, like not having sex for a month is some ridiculous, just utter suffering task for $100,000.
I mean, keep in mind that sex addiction is a real thing.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
They never say that these people are sex addicted.
Okay.
And no one ever acknowledges it in like a clinical way. They never like acknowledge that like, hey, I have this actual illness to deal with. Mm-hmm. Instead, they're all talking about, man, I could poke a hole in a wall right now. It's a line of dialogue that stuck with me.
God.
And it's, yeah, they never try to make anything serious out of the potential that they are actually sex addicted people. And frankly, I think in every reality show, you're questioning how much of it is real and how much of it is the producer telling them to do this and that. I feel like episode 1, where they're being introduced, had way more producer intervention, and I feel like they were all told to be ridiculously stupid and meat-headed and frustrating, and I was like, man, this is like some Jerry Springer level garbage. I'm so annoyed with these people. Mm-hmm. But then my wife insisted, and we kept going, and you do see these people have like some amount of actual emotional growth, some of them, not others. You will find yourself for the whole season wanting to just scream at the people in the show. They're like, so how it works is you don't have sex and lose. The idea is every sexual activity is a fine away from the $100,000.
Okay.
But when one person, or I guess 2 people, screw up, that money is lost for everyone. So they need to kind of encourage each other to be responsible.
Okay.
And so you see this one guy who's like an accountant, and there's like a million memes that are just like, oh, hey, Kel's face anytime someone screws up. And it's just him just being perpetually frustrated, not tempted at all, despite apparently on episode 1 being told to introduce himself as a stupid meathead. And then there's one female character who is just almost not in the show at all, because apparently she was never tempted at any point in time. She's not like building a relationship with anyone. She has almost no screen time because apparently she just went, okay, no sex, big deal, and read a book for a month.
So,
but
so none of these people were they clinically like introduced as having this addiction?
Never. If that's what it is, they never acknowledge it. It's like all of these people think that being this way is cute, or the producers told them to exaggerate how extreme it is for the first episode. The conclusion I kind of came to is that they weren't screwing up and struggling because they have this addiction. It seemed more like these people were just already rich and this money didn't actually matter to them.
Gotcha.
They're not super clear about it, like they do say this guy's an accountant, this girl's an influencer, but you never really see anyone's lifestyle outside of the show. And I just started to get that vibe. Like someone like made out with the person they were interested in, and it cost everyone $3,000. And he was like, $3,000, whatever, it's nothing. I'm like, oh, you're disregarding this because you're already rich. This means nothing to you.
Yeah.
And then to like kind of shake things up midway through the show, they'd like bring new people onto the island and hope that they like stir up some new drama and whatever. And like one of those people was blatantly like, yeah, I don't care about the money. I'm here to have sex. So he's just there to blatantly sabotage the whole thing.
Oh my God.
And so at the end of the day, I was entertained enough to finish watching it, but there were a lot of just structural problems with how the show was planned out and just weird inconsistencies where like they're not clear up front. And I can't tell if the contestants were even sure. They weren't clear up front if the $100,000 was per person or split up. I kept getting dialogue that implied one way or the other.
Yeah.
Until the final episode made it official that it was being split up. And then just some of the characters are just, I don't know if unbelievable's the right word, but just unlikable. You're watching it in a train wreck kind of way. There's a couple people where you're like, yeah, maybe they grew. Maybe I get it. And then there's other people where you're like, they did not deserve to win anything.
Gotcha.
And they end up splitting the money between like,
excuse me,
you know, there's people that were responsible on day one and never screw up. And they end up being awarded the same money as other people that, oh, they had sex and cost everyone money. But then they had an interaction that we're led to believe represented emotional growth after the fact. So they get to be a winner, too.
Yeah.
And it's like, OK, technically, I get it, because the show's premise was not don't have sex. It was grow in some way.
Yeah.
So like there's one character that like volunteers himself out because he's like, well, I'm not connecting anyone, not connecting with anyone, which does mean I'm not having sex, but it also means I'm not growing in any way, so I can't win.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so the rules just don't end up being, they don't end up feeling fair. They don't end up feeling consistent. There's a point where like there's this Alexa type device that is the only thing supposedly interacting with them. Supposedly they don't see any producers and whatnot on the island. Obviously that's bullshit, but kind of like The Circle.
Okay.
And they're all trying to find out who screwed up and cost them money the previous night. Turns out they can just ask the device. One of them's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And they ask the device and it rats the people out. And I'm like, shouldn't you have to establish on day one whether or not the device is allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Would that not affect people's decision making when they're about to screw up?
There's no drama that way.
Right. And then, well, because some of these characters
drama that way.
Yeah. And just some of these characters end up being so uninteresting that, you know, like I said, they introduce characters midway that they hope to kind of shake up some drama. But it reads like they weren't intending to do that up front. It reads like they filmed a couple episodes and went, oh, this is kind of dry and boring. We're really struggling for footage. I don't know. Let's throw in someone new.
Yeah.
And the first time they do it, they like bring in this guy who like, I wouldn't say he's unattractive, but he has no business competing with the rest of the people on the show.
Okay.
And I even looked up the show on Twitter to be like, am I seeing this right? And everyone on Twitter is just like, why is this guy here? Mm-hmm. And why is this girl pretending to fall for him immediately when he is like not even in the same league as these other people? It's not even that he's unattractive. It's that the show started with people that are supposed to be like Olympian gods. Yeah. And then this guy's just, I don't know. I own a boat and I play piano a little and I look okay.
So you got put on this show?
Exactly.
When did you buy a boat?
Oh, I did get a really good laugh out of this particularly dumb chick approaching him after he plays a really crummy song at a piano keyboard. And he's like, yeah. So you put your fingers here and now you're playing like a G chord. And she goes, you're like some kind of god of pianos or something. And he goes, no, I'm really not. And I about died.
Like, the realest person there.
It was funny because he had the ego to be like, let me perform a song for you guys. And it was like day one piano skills and singing. That was like, maybe he's actually decent, but he's screwed up because he's on camera in front of, who knows how many people are going to watch this show. So it seemed more to me like he was too scared to do it than that he couldn't. I guess we'll never know. But he had the ego to feel like he should do that, but also was like self-aware enough to be like, no, I am not a god of pianos. So
god of pianos.
So kudos to him for that, I guess. This show, I don't know, maybe it's like the lightest recommend ever because I was still entertained. I still finished it, but I also finished it going, man, you guys really need to listen to the complaints you're getting before you do a season 2. They at least need to rework the rules in such a way that, like I said, there were people that just outright didn't care if they were the ones losing the money for other people just because of the way the rules were laid out. There's just strategic fundamental problems with how the game works, where people who are responsible are getting the same rewards and punishment as people that don't give a shit and are being reckless. And I think the basis for what they considered emotional growth was really, really flawed. They were really stretching it to say, oh yeah, these people learned something. Because I finished it going, no, they absolutely did not. I don't know. This show's stupid. It kind of sucks. I'm still going to watch season 2 if it happens, whatever.
You just did the Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, my band's terrible. Come listen.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anyways.
That's all I've got this week. I'm going out on that note.
Oh, you're going out on that note?
We got 2 more episodes to record.
Yeah, fair. I was going to talk about how I bought Gorn, too.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Talk about Gorn.
We've talked about Gorn, but I haven't played it.
You got 30 seconds. Go.
I haven't played it since it came out of beta. It's
Don't actually rush. Talk about Gorn.
Sure. It's a gladiator VR game where you beat everyone to death. There's a lot of beating to death in this episode from my end. I hope
there's a lot of beating to death in VR.
I hope this doesn't awaken something in me.
I think I've literally said that out loud while playing Gorn.
Anyways, I want to play this game with you because I'm pretty sure it's co-op now. And my favorite...
It's not co-op. It has a versus local multiplayer where you can play against people that are playing at the monitor with Xbox controllers.
Oh, that's lame. Because I just want to be able to flip you off the entire time. Because they made that a function in the game where you push a button, at least on my controllers, where he gives you the fingers. So that's my favorite thing to do.
I think their aversion to making this a proper multiplayer game is probably just that the physics work in such a way that they could not possibly deal with 2 real people colliding their weapons and limbs together in a way that works with how the game works, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. But
I would love to see them try it anyway.
I'll tell you what, I'm used to just like the regular like hand weapons and not the throwing weapons. The throwing weapons are a lot of fun, but they are terrible.
I never got comfortable with them.
I wouldn't hate because like they added a bow and arrow and the throwing knives on your wrists.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, I don't like throwing anything in any VR game, and maybe that'll be different once I own those Valve Index controllers that are affixed to your hands that you can let go of. Because the thing with throwing in VR is that
you want to throw the controller.
Yeah, for those who haven't gotten to try it, it just doesn't feel right to have to throw something by doing a throwing motion and letting go of a button or a trigger, but not the controller itself.
Yeah.
The index controllers let you let go of the controller itself, and I'm guessing that feels a million times better.
Yeah, it might make the difference. And then from there, you can actually focus on aiming and arcing and you know, lobbing things around.
For now, it's not just this game. I hate it in any game.
In Gorn they added like a story mode where you progressively fight harder and harder enemies, and I think
it was always there. It's just that they finished it.
Yeah. Okay. I got to the dude with where you have to have the hammer and the shield, and he has all the archers. I cannot get past that.
It gets hard, man. It gets really hard. I think
that's like the third stage. And if you made it to like the second to final stage, I don't know how the hell you did it.
I made it to like the end of the final stage. I was losing and gave up at like the very last thing you do in the game. So like individual battles can still be broken into bits, and I was in like the last bit of the last stage and just had to give up. Wasn't gonna happen. I don't think we actually, I know this isn't the first time, it might not even be the second time we've talked about this game on the show, but I feel like we didn't actually explain what it is other than you get to beat people to death. It is a super cartoony gladiator arena game.
Isn't it Double Fine?
I don't think.
Because if you guys are familiar with Double Fine, like Brutal Legend, think that art style.
Yeah, it is that kind of vibe. It's not.
Oh man, it's gonna kill me if I don't find out who
the publisher is Devolver.
Devolver. Okay, same one as Double Fine.
Yeah, developer Free Lives, who made Broforce and Genital Jousting.
Yeah.
So it's. We made the joke. I hope this doesn't awaken something in me. And I mentioned that VR is full of beating people to death.
Yeah.
I am glad that this game is super cartoony.
Because there's games like Blade and Sorcery which aren't.
And I don't know where my limit is on what I can accept doing in VR. Blade and Sorcery doesn't quite get there just because the graphics they're a more realistic art style. They're aiming for realism, but they're not making it very far into it. They're still kind of dated, not very impressive graphics, easy to mentally
think like late stage
keep yourself out of. Yeah. And so it's not really pushing a boundary for me graphics wise. But
it's fun, but
if we start getting photorealism in specifically like really brutal VR games, there might have to come a point where I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm not comfortable.
Yeah.
Or I'll get desensitized to it slowly as we get there, whatever, we'll see. But for Gorn being one of the first VR titles, I'm relieved they went with the cartoony approach, and they needed to because of the way the weapons work. This game,
the weight doesn't translate as well in Blade and Sorcery versus Gorn, because Gorn has like an inflatable balloon weapon.
Yeah, so Gorn,
we've actually touched on this before.
The thing that's particularly special about Gorn as a kind of melee focused VR game is that it simulates the weight of the weapons by making them like bendy. They, like you said, they feel like a balloon, and they do that so that the handle can stay in your hand. You can keep that perfect 1-to-1 tracking, but the weapon still follows through more slowly. So the heavier that weapon should be, the bendier it is in this game.
Yeah.
So that you don't lose immersion from needing to let the handle leave your hand, but you can still have real weight to weapons. And it's brilliant. It also can't really be done without this goofy, silly art style because, the weapons are made of rubber.
Right, exactly. Which I don't know. I like Blade and Sorcery for, the realism, but there's a lot of disconnect because you don't feel the weight of two-handed weapons. You don't, feel like clashing of steel. And that's what that game is about.
Yeah,
it's about
A lot of people prefer Blade and Sorcery having more realistic physics and whatnot. I've only played it for maybe 10 minutes the day that it went into early access. I need to revisit it again, but at the time,
played it. Yeah, I love it, but
I didn't like that, compared to Gorn, it going for that experience meant letting your weapons leave your hands frequently because it simulates weight by simply making your in-game character's hands not move as fast as yours do.
Yeah. And
it's a different approach from Gorn, and everyone will prefer one or the other. And once you've kind of learned the speed of the weapons in Sword and Sorcery, I imagine you get better at like intentionally slowing down your real body. You probably get a feel for like, okay, this weapon can move this fast, so I will move my real body this fast.
That's fair.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I did play one more VR game too.
Oh, okay.
I played a few. The Wizards. This is actually a game I stole out of your library, and I love it. I genuinely am in love with it. Have you played most of it or any of it?
I have so many Magic games in my VR library that I need to take a glance back at which one this is. Okay, it says I played for 1 hour. I believe I remember which one this is.
I've played it for 2.
And I recall enjoying it. I think the only reason I didn't keep going and finish it and kind of forgot about it is that I got it when I was buying every VR game under the sun.
Yeah,
and so I have a million VR games that I have 1 hour of game time in because I'm an idiot.
This one is co-op, if I'm not mistaken, and we could actually play together, which this will be a lot of fun. It's a shooter essentially, but the neat thing about it is each attack has its own gesture with your controllers. Like you grab the trigger on your right hand and then flick your wrist out and it creates a fireball. You throw your hands, crisscross and you get an ice bow, or like lightning, you have to grab your hands, pull the triggers, punch forward, and then release the triggers and you get lightning.
It's a really cool gesture system.
Yeah, and it feels fitting. I really enjoyed what I had played of this game. It just gets difficult. Because I don't have a gigantic space to play in.
Sure.
But that wasn't inhibiting me as much as it was when you get surrounded by enemies. Because turning around with a wire attached to your head, I know you have this exact same problem.
Oh, you know what? That's why I didn't finish it. Yeah, exactly. At that time, I thought I might have invested in wireless soon, and I was going to wait until then. That's exactly what happened.
That's the biggest downfall of this game is the game itself is fantastic, but the hardware that's used right now isn't good enough for it.
It's one of those things that a developer going into VR needs to, just like a fundamentally new concept they need to get their head around, is assuming that it's difficult for you to keep rotating and designing the levels in such a way that it caters well enough to that limitation.
Yeah.
I've said before that Hollow Point, which is just simply archery in a dojo that's kind of 360 degrees around, it would be my go-to workout game, and I would say everyone should own it if it wasn't so goddamn hard to play with a wire. Most VR games, I don't have a problem with a wire, but there's just a few where the design of the game itself is just incompatible with it. Hollow Point, you need to be able to physically turn around on a dime in either direction every few seconds. You cannot be thinking about the wire. And in this one, it's the levels could have been designed in a way that made it work a little better.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember playing in a section where like I was basically in something the shape of an arena. I think I might have. I played this like 2 years ago. I don't know, but I vaguely remember being chased around a circular arena while also needing to destroy something in the middle of the arena. This meant I was turning constantly.
Yeah.
And the wire was just frustrating.
Yeah, because you're worried about ripping it out of your computer or tripping over it and damaging something in the room, that it's not worth winning over that cost.
Yeah, well, and think about this too. If you've managed to like, if you're lucky enough to have a lot of space in your play area, now you're standing further away from your tower, and now you have less slack. Yeah, you have less slack in the cord. So you have fewer times that you can turn around before you're ripping it out.
Exactly.
So a lot of the time, like I've adjusted to artificial turning in VR games, and for a lot of people, it's totally impossible.
I have too.
I will basically, like, I've started games and refused to continue because I couldn't turn artificially, because I'm like, I'm not going back to worrying about this wire.
Yeah. And see, like, I'm not too worried about getting sick because, like, I got lucky enough with a house that has 2 bathrooms, 1 on each floor. And my bathroom is literally right out this door, run straight in, and I'm ready to puke anytime, baby. So.
Oh my God.
You do it safely. You have, like, ginger pills for everybody when they come in, because ginger's known to help with nausea and motion sickness.
And I make other people use them. To be honest, I've rarely used them myself, but now that I think about it, it's because I just haven't been using VR lately. I have noticed if I don't touch it for like a month and then I go jump into like Skyrim, then all of a sudden
you're like, oh God.
Yeah, I'm able to get sick again. So I've kind of built my VR legs and then lost them and then built them again several times.
VR legs. Oh shit!
Yeah. On that note, Gorn. Yeah. On that note,
sweet.
Gorn is a must-buy for VR.
Blade and Sorcery is if you want something that you're not looking to be super serious in. I've seen gifs of people playing that game, and I'm like, how the fuck do you play it that good? Like, I've seen somebody put in like a lightsaber mod, and it actually works. Like, they push the button on the saber, it retracts and, goes forward. And this dude was like fighting a dude with the spear, and he grabbed the dude's spear, threw his lightsaber in the air, and then like turned on the button right below his chin and like killed the dude. And I'm like, how do you get this good at this game? Like, it's stupid.
That was an interesting side rant in the middle of my summary.
Sorry.
And the Wizards is pretty cool too. I don't want to call it a must own because I played it for 1 hour 2 years ago, but you've got me interested to check it out again. So
yeah, you can always buy it for me, and then we can play co-op. Maybe that'll help with all the turning.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone. We will be continuing on with our Marvel marathon leading into Iron Man 2.
Yeah,
we'll see you there. Bye-bye.
Huh?